At exactly 3:00 a.m. in the dead of winter, while most of the city lay in deep sleep beneath flickering street lamps and frost-covered windows, a tired nurse named Olivia collapsed onto her small bed in a studio apartment, barely warmed by a creaky radiator. She had just finished a grueling 14-hour shift in the emergency room, her legs numb, her scrubs stained with memories, her body begging for rest. The cold from the cracked window seeped through the room, but she barely noticed, already drifting into a fog of exhaustion. And then her phone rang. Not a gentle vibration, but a sharp jolt that cut through the silence like a siren. She blinked groggily at the screen. An unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer. But something in her gut stirred that instinct you can't train for in med school, the one that whispers, "Listen, this matters." So she picked up. On the other end was the trembling voice of a little girl. She said, "Mama, Daddy's chest hurts again." In that moment, Olivia sat bolt upright, confused, alert. She didn't recognize the voice, nor did she know the number. She gently asked, "Sweetheart, I think you may have the wrong number. Who is this?" The girl hesitated, her voice cracking. "You're not Mama. Are you a doctor?" Olivia replied softly. "I'm a nurse. What's happening?" The child whimpered. "Daddy can't breathe. He's on the floor. Please help." No address, no clear name, just the blind plea of a child and the weight of the unknown. Olivia's heart clenched. She didn't question whether this was real or not. She just moved. Still in her scrubs, without grabbing a coat, she threw her emergency kit into the passenger seat of her aging car and drove into the icy night. The streets blurred under streetlights and thin mist. Every block looked the same. She didn't know where to go, so she searched. House by house, street by street, until she saw it, a white house with a black iron fence and a flickering red porch light. The kind of detail only a child would remember. She parked, heart pounding, ran up the steps and knocked. The door opened to reveal a barefoot little girl, no older than 4, with wet cheeks and tear-filled eyes. "You came," she whispered. Olivia crouched beside her. "I told you I would." The girl led her inside. In the living room, a man lay on the floor, pale and gasping. No delay. Olivia dropped beside him, opened her kit, and began emergency treatment. No hesitation, no fear, just action. Her hands moved quickly, applying pressure, administering his inhaler, checking vitals. She stayed calm, steady, focused. Minutes passed like hours, but eventually the man's breathing eased. His chest stopped heaving. His eyes fluttered open. He looked up disoriented and whispered, "Who are you, Olivia?" Still catching her breath, said, "I'm a nurse. A little girl called me. She thought I could help." And in that strange stillness, something shifted. Because this wasn't just a random emergency. This was the beginning of something unexpected and life-altering. Let's stop here and unpack what just happened. Because this isn't just a dramatic coincidence or a tearjerker about a stranger helping a child. This is about intuition. It's about answering calls you weren't meant to receive, but were somehow chosen to. In real life, people often hesitate. We overthink. We question whether we're the right person or if it's even our responsibility. But here's the truth: sometimes the world doesn't wait for perfect timing. Sometimes you just have to go. I once heard a story of a man in Tokyo who saw a stranger collapse on a subway platform. Hundreds stood around filming, unsure, frozen by doubt. But one woman jumped in, cleared his airway, and kept him alive until EMTs arrived. Later they found out she was off duty. A paramedic, yes, but off duty. She saved his life not because it was her job at that moment, but because it was her nature. That's what Olivia did. She wasn't on call. She wasn't being paid. She was simply human. And humanity, when chosen in moments like these, changes everything. Back in the living room, the little girl, whose name was Lily, clutched a stuffed rabbit and stood beside Olivia, quiet but watching. Olivia asked, "Did your mommy leave this number for emergencies?" Lily nodded. It was on a paper. "Mommy said if Daddy gets sick, I should call." Olivia pieced it together. This was a number someone else used to have, a number recycled by the phone company. Somehow it had ended up with her. Coincidence, maybe. But sometimes accidents are just destiny wearing a disguise. And here's where this story starts to carry deeper emotional gravity. Lily's mother had passed away. That much became clear when the child whispered, "Mommy's in the sky now like the stars." Olivia blinked back tears. She had faced loss, worked with grieving families. But this was different. This wasn't hospital grief tucked away in charts and protocol. This was raw, quiet pain painted on a child's face. As the EMTs arrived and stabilized the man whose name she learned was Noah, Olivia prepared to leave. Her body begged for rest. But just as she reached for her coat, a tiny hand tugged at her shirt. Lily looked up, eyes wide, and asked, "Can you stay a little bit longer?" And that question, that simple request, is where the story truly begins. Because Olivia could have left. She had done her part. But she didn't. She stayed. That choice, made in a dim living room by a stranger in wrinkled scrubs, would change not just one night, but 3 lives. Forever. As the emergency responders packed up their gear and left the scene with a few final instructions, Olivia stood by the doorway, unsure whether to stay or step into the cold morning air. Her muscles were screaming, her scrubs clung damply to her skin, and her eyelids felt like lead, but something in that room rooted her to the floor. Maybe it was the girl still watching her with quiet hope, or maybe it was the man now sitting up on the couch, weak but alive, meeting her eyes with something unspoken. Noah's breathing had stabilized, but the weight in his expression hadn't lifted. His gaze kept drifting to his daughter, who now curled up beside Olivia, with a trust that had taken shape in a matter of hours. Olivia had never seen a child lean so completely into a stranger. It wasn't just relief, it was recognition. Somewhere inside Lily, something had told her Olivia wasn't going to leave. That instinct, raw and uncoached, mattered more than anything. Noah tried to speak. His voice was hoarse. "You really didn't have to come here," he said. Olivia, adjusting the blanket around Lily's shoulders, replied gently, "Maybe not, but someone called for help. And I'm not the kind of person who ignores that." There's a lesson buried in that moment, one we often overlook in real life. Not every act of kindness has to come from obligation. Sometimes the most powerful help is the kind that isn't expected, but is offered anyway. Olivia could have easily justified not getting involved. She could have assumed it was a prank or that someone else would handle it. But when the moment came, she responded not because it was her job, but because it was her choice. That's the difference between obligation and character. Now let's look at what makes Noah such a compelling figure in this story. You'd expect a former CEO, even a single dad, to be composed and in control. But Noah wasn't. He was unraveling quietly, trying to hold the world together with duct tape and whispered bedtime stories. And now someone had stepped into that unraveling. He was grateful, yes, but conflicted. Vulnerability wasn't a space he was comfortable with, especially not when it was witnessed by someone who didn't owe him anything. That night, as Olivia held Lily close on the couch and read from a tattered picture book she found on a nearby shelf, the house softened. The chaos of earlier faded into something almost peaceful. Noah watched from the other side of the room, wrapped in a blanket, eyes shadowed but steady. The sound of Olivia's voice as she read slowly, rhythmically, filled the room like a lullaby. For a while, there were no questions, no fears, just breathing, just presence. Olivia eventually carried Lily upstairs and tucked her into a small bed lined with stuffed animals. She smoothed the girl's hair and stayed until she was sure Lily had drifted into real sleep. When she tiptoed back downstairs, Noah looked up and whispered, "She hasn't slept that deeply since her mom passed." Olivia sat quietly for a moment, unsure how to respond. Then she said, "Sometimes all it takes is knowing someone is there when you wake up." And that's something too many people don't realize. Grief doesn't always scream. Often it just sits there quietly, showing up as insomnia or silence or the inability to believe someone will stay. For Lily, the world had become uncertain. But in Olivia, even if just temporarily, she found something solid. Noah finally admitted something that night. With a voice that shook less from weakness and more from memory, he said, "I used to run a company. Fast-paced, demanding. People respected me. But after Anna died, I couldn't walk into that office anymore without feeling like I was wearing someone else's skin." Olivia didn't interrupt. He continued. "They said it was a routine surgery, an easy one. I dropped her off that morning. She laughed at a dumb joke I made. Hours later, I got a call not to tell me she was in recovery, but that she was gone. That fast. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was honest. Olivia had worked enough hospital shifts to know how grief shows itself. Some people rage. Some people go quiet. Some people walk away and never come back. Noah had gone silent. Olivia didn't offer platitudes. She didn't say, "I'm sorry for your loss." She just sat there, present, listening. Sometimes that's enough. A few days passed after that night. Olivia returned each morning with small gifts for Lily, a coloring book, a fresh set of crayons, a storybook about forest creatures. Lily would press her nose to the window as Olivia pulled up, waving eagerly. Olivia never stayed long at first. Just enough to read a story, clean up some toys, and remind Noah gently to take his meds or eat something that wasn't microwavable. And slowly, subtly, she became part of the rhythm of the house. Not because she tried to, because she simply fit. One morning, Lily tugged Olivia into her little art corner. She showed her a crayon drawing a stick figure with long yellow hair standing between two others. One tall, one small. "That's you," Lily said proudly, pointing to the middle figure. "Me and Daddy are holding your hand so you don't get lost." That kind of child logic wrapped in innocence hits harder than any poetic phrase. Noah saw the drawing later. He didn't say anything, but Olivia found a note beside her tea that evening. In his handwriting it read, "Thanks for not getting lost." Real-life moments like this don't scream. They whisper. They nudge something inside of us. Something we forget exists in the rush of work and responsibility. This is why found family matters so much in both fiction and reality. Because sometimes the ones who choose to show up matter more than the ones who are supposed to. One evening, Olivia sat in her car longer than usual before driving away. Her hands on the wheel, her chest heavy. This wasn't her home. This wasn't her child. But something about that house, the stillness, the laughter, the fragility, it had gotten under her skin. She needed space to think. That night, she emailed her nurse supervisor requesting a few days off. Not because she was overwhelmed, but because something inside her felt too calm to ignore. She returned the next morning, not with toys, but with an envelope. She smiled at Lily, then looked at Noah. "I need a few days," she said, "to breathe." Noah nodded. He understood. Sometimes letting someone go is the only way to know if they'll come back. The days Olivia spent away from the little white house on Elm Street were quieter than she expected, but not peaceful. She had thought space would help her recenter, but her mind kept drifting back to Lily's drawing, to Noah's weary expression, to the way the girl's hand had slipped into hers without question, like it had always belonged there. She tried to distract herself with chores, catching up on laundry, reorganizing the spice rack she barely used, even reading a half-finished book about the neurobiology of compassion, but none of it settled the restlessness inside her. The truth was that Olivia wasn't just missing them, she was realizing something deeper. Sometimes your heart arrives at home long before your head gives you permission to admit it. She had answered that 3 a.m. call thinking it would be a single act of kindness, but what she found was not an accident. It was a doorway into a life she never expected to step into. Meanwhile, back at the house, Noah was struggling to fill the space she'd left behind. Lily asked for her constantly. "Where's Olivia? Will she come tomorrow? Can we call her Noah?" Didn't know how to answer without making promises he wasn't sure Olivia would keep. And even though he tried to resume their routine, something about the house felt emptier now, as if Olivia's presence had filled cracks neither he nor Lily knew existed. That's the thing about connection. It's not always about time or history, but resonance. And Olivia had resonated deeply in their home, in their grief, in their quiet healing. 3 days later, it happened again. Another emergency. Noah had tried to be careful. He'd taken his medication, stayed hydrated, avoided stress. But grief and anxiety don't care about schedules. Around midnight, he felt a tightness in his chest, pressure radiating toward his jaw, a cold sweat he couldn't explain away. Lily was asleep upstairs. He didn't want to scare her, so he sat on the kitchen floor leaning against the cabinet, hoping it would pass. But it didn't. He knew he needed help, and this time he didn't dial 911. He called Olivia. Her phone buzzed in the dark. She saw the name and answered before the second ring. "It's happening again," he said. She didn't ask questions. She was already putting on her shoes. She reached the house in under 10 minutes. No hesitation, no confusion, just focus. She found him slumped against the wall, conscious but fading. She performed the same emergency protocol as before, but this time there was no panic. There was rhythm. There was certainty. She knew him now. She knew his triggers, his tells, his baseline vitals. This wasn't just a nurse responding to a call. This was someone protecting her own. And as she worked, she whispered calming words not just to keep him focused, but to keep herself grounded, because this time the fear wasn't clinical, it was personal. Noah stabilized. His breathing slowed. When it was over, Olivia didn't move away. She stayed beside him on the floor, their shoulders touching, both of them quiet. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be," she replied. "You called. That's what matters." "I didn't know who else to call," he admitted. "You called the right person," she said, not looking at him. That night, after ensuring he was stable and Lily still asleep, Olivia didn't leave. She stayed on the living room couch, half sitting, half watching, until the first light of dawn crept in through the blinds. It was in those early hours that something shifted. Not a declaration, not a kiss. Just a moment, a recognition. They weren't strangers anymore. They weren't a nurse and a patient. They were something else, something that didn't yet have a name, but held more truth than most labels ever could. In the days that followed, Olivia began returning regularly. No longer just as a helper. She began organizing the kitchen, restocking the medicine cabinet with practical supplies, and creating a daily chart for Noah's vitals. She even set up a small corner of the house with first aid kits and laminated guides for Lily. It wasn't that she was trying to fix everything. It was that she was building a foundation, a quiet one move at a time. Let's step back for a moment and reflect on the deeper truth of what's happening here. In modern life, we're often taught that love and connection arrive in grand gestures, in roses and rings and declarations. But real bonds often begin in the quiet moments when someone shows up not because they're asked to, but because they choose to. I remember hearing a story from a retired firefighter who said the most powerful thing he ever witnessed wasn't the rescue of a trapped family or a dramatic ladder climb. It was a single neighbor who sat with a burned-out homeowner for hours after the fire, saying nothing, just being there. That presence, that commitment to stay in someone's darkest moment, that's what changes lives. That's what Olivia gave Noah and Lily. Presence. A few weeks passed. Life began to find its rhythm again. Olivia still worked shifts at the hospital, but now she carved out time in her calendar for Lily's bedtime stories or weekend pancake breakfasts. And slowly Noah began to recover, not just physically, but emotionally. He started smiling again. He cooked real meals. He and Lily danced in the kitchen to old records Olivia found in a dusty crate. And through it all, there was an unspoken agreement between him and Olivia. No pressure, no titles, just trust. One evening, while Lily slept upstairs, Noah and Olivia sat on the porch steps watching fireflies dance under the moonlight. "You know," Noah said softly, "I used to think the hardest part of losing Anna was the silence afterward, but now I think it was forgetting what laughter sounded like in this house." Olivia didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Sometimes the best way to honor what we've lost is to make room for what's still possible." He looked at her. "And what if I'm scared?" "Then be scared," she said. "But don't let it stop you from living." He smiled faintly. "You're really bad at giving easy answers." "Good," she replied. "Easy answers rarely lead to real healing." That night when Olivia left, she didn't feel conflicted anymore. She didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like she was walking home. And somewhere in the back of that house, a little girl dreamed peacefully, knowing that the woman who answered her wrong number at 3 a.m. was no accident at all. By now, Olivia had seamlessly blended into the routine of Noah and Lily's lives, not with fanfare or force, but through subtle acts of consistency that shaped their days like steady hands molding clay. Each morning brought a new pattern, a gentle knock on the door, the soft scrape of her boots on the porch, the rustle of a grocery bag filled with ingredients. Lily liked the familiar jingle of her keychain as she hung it on the same hook near the door. She wasn't a guest anymore, and she wasn't just a caregiver. She had become something deeper, someone who anchored their small world in stability and care. Lily would wake up asking if Olivia was staying for breakfast. Noah, still emotionally guarded, but more open now, would brew an extra cup of coffee without thinking. And Olivia would always make time for story hour giggles and organizing the medicine cabinet in a way that made nurses everywhere proud. But one evening, something shifted again. Not in a dramatic way, It started with a question. While flipping through a coloring book, Lily asked Olivia, "Are you going to be my new mom?" The question landed like a stone in a still pond. Olivia froze, crayon in hand. Noah looked up from across the room. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was full of meaning, uncertainty, and the delicate honesty of a child who saw the world far more clearly than most adults did. Olivia set the crayon down slowly and met Lily's eyes. "I'm not trying to replace your mom," she said gently. "She was special. No one can take her place." Lily frowned, thinking deeply. "But I like when you're here." Daddy laughs more. "And you make the house smell like pancakes and hugs." Olivia smiled, holding back tears. "I like being here too." That conversation, innocent and raw, forced Olivia to look inward. She had entered this family by accident, but she stayed by choice. And now she had to ask herself, what was she building here? Was this temporary comfort, or was this a new life beginning to unfold? Real-life moments like these often go unnoticed. They don't make headlines, but they define everything. They ask us to choose not between right and wrong, but between fear and possibility. Around that time, Olivia met with an old friend from nursing school, Carla, over coffee. She hadn't shared much about Noah and Lily until now. Carla listened with interest, then asked the question Olivia hadn't dared speak aloud. "Are you in love with him?" Olivia stared into her cup, unsure. "I don't know. It doesn't feel like the movies. There's no music swelling or grand declarations. It just feels like home." Carla smiled knowingly. "That's how you know it's real. The love that sneaks up on you when you're too busy caring to notice. And maybe that's the point. Love doesn't always arrive in flowers or fireworks. Sometimes it enters at 3 a.m. through a phone call you weren't supposed to answer." One evening, Olivia brought over a homemade dinner, roasted vegetables, lemon thyme chicken, and Lily's favorite buttered noodles. After dinner, while cleaning up in the kitchen, Noah leaned on the counter and said, "You've changed this place. It used to feel heavy. Now it breathes again." Olivia looked up. Maybe it just needed someone to exhale first. They stood there close, but not touching, the air between them, dense with things unsaid. Noah reached into the drawer and pulled out a small jewelry box. "I found this in the closet, Anna's old necklace. Lily was too young to remember it, but I thought, maybe you'd want to give it to her one day." Olivia blinked. "That's not something I should—" "You're already part of her life," he interrupted. "You don't have to be her mother to carry a piece of what she loved." Olivia opened the box and stared at the simple gold pendant, shaped like a teardrop. She closed it gently. "Maybe when she's older." That night, as Olivia tucked Lily into bed, the girl sleepily reached out and said, "I had a dream that we were a family. You, me, and Daddy." We were laughing. Olivia smoothed her hair. "That sounds like a beautiful dream." "It wasn't just a dream," Lily mumbled before drifting off. Olivia sat beside her for a long time, watching her breathe, her mind filled with a storm of feelings she hadn't prepared for. Outside, the wind howled gently. Inside, everything felt still, sacred, and terrifying in its honesty. The next morning, Olivia made a decision. She wasn't going to run from this anymore. She walked into her hospital's HR office and requested a shift change, 3 days on, 4 days off. When asked why, she simply said, "It's time I stop treating my life like a series of emergencies and start choosing what matters before it's too late." That's a truth many people run from. We live as though there's always more time, more chances, more opportunities to prioritize what we care about. But time isn't guaranteed. It's rented. And sometimes a wrong number at 3 a.m. reminds you exactly what's worth fighting for. When Olivia returned home that night, she found Lily waiting by the window as always, nose pressed to the glass. But this time, Lily held something in her hand, the gold pendant. "Daddy said I could give it to you," she said. "He said Mom would want you to have it." Olivia knelt down, her voice trembling. "Are you sure?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Because you helped my heart not hurt so much." Olivia didn't need a speech or a title. That moment was enough. The first snowfall came late that year, soft and slow like a blanket, tucking in the whole neighborhood. And with it came a deepening of something that had already been growing quietly between Olivia and Noah. It wasn't marked by grand gestures or big announcements, but by small changes, invisible threads being woven into the fabric of their daily lives. Noah started cooking more often, not because Olivia needed it, but because she liked it. Olivia began leaving an extra sweater in the hallway closet, not because she planned to stay overnight, but because she knew she might. Lily began drawing pictures of the three of them, more frequently stick figures in mittens and scarves, always standing beneath big snowflakes and holding hands. Children have a way of seeing the truth before adults admit it. Love to them isn't abstract. It's in who shows up and stays, who hugs the tightest, who answers when you whisper their name in the dark. One Saturday morning, the three of them built a snowman in the front yard. Olivia insisted on making it with proper structure, balanced base-packed core, while Lily wanted wild creativity with buttons for eyes and a crooked scarf. Noah played peacemaker, helping them find the balance between order and joy. When the snowman was complete, Lily clapped her mitten-covered hands and declared, "Now we're a team." Olivia laughed. "We've always been a team." But inside, she felt something shift. Because this wasn't just a game. This was their life now. It had taken shape one moment at a time, and somehow they'd built something beautiful from the mess of what was broken. That evening, they stayed in and watched an old holiday movie. The kind with cheesy music and too perfect snowfall. The kind Olivia used to scoff at, but now watched with blurry eyes and a full heart. Lily fell asleep halfway through her head on Olivia's lap, and Noah didn't move from his spot on the other end of the couch, his gaze soft and unwavering. After the credits rolled, he whispered, "You know, I keep waiting for the moment when all of this feels too good to be true, but every day it feels more like the only thing that makes sense anymore." Olivia didn't respond right away. She looked down at Lily, tucked the girl's blanket tighter, and finally said, "Maybe we don't need to explain it. Maybe we just need to keep showing up for it. That's how real connection grows, not with a bang, but with the quiet decision to stay, to keep showing up, again and again." A week later, something unexpected happened. Olivia received a call from her old hospital supervisor. A position had opened up, a nurse manager role in pediatrics. Better pay, more prestige, flexible hours. It was everything she'd worked for, everything she thought she wanted. But accepting it would mean moving across the state, starting over, walking away from the fragile, beautiful world she'd stumbled into through a wrong number. She didn't give an answer right away. Instead, she walked to the park near Lily's school and sat on the same bench where she had once sat alone during her first week in the city. She remembered how lost she'd felt, how tired, how invisible. Now, sitting on that same bench, she felt seen, needed, whole. She called Carla. "If I take this job, it means giving up something I didn't even know I was looking for. But if I stay, it means saying no to a version of my future I've worked for years to build." Carla replied with the wisdom only a true friend can offer. "Then ask yourself which version of your future you're more afraid to lose, the one you planned or the one that surprised you." That night, Olivia didn't bring it up with Noah. Not yet. She needed time to sort through the noise in her heart. But she couldn't hide it completely. Over dinner, Noah noticed. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking," she replied. "About leaving." She froze. "How did you? I saw the hospital logo on your email this morning," he said gently. "I wasn't snooping. It just popped up while you were feeding Lily." Olivia sighed. "It's a good opportunity. A step forward." "It is," he agreed. "But forward doesn't always mean away." She looked at him and for the first time let the uncertainty show. "What if I stay and regret it? What if you go and realize this was the life you were meant for all along?" he countered. "You don't owe us anything, Olivia. But if you're here because you want to be, not out of guilt or habit, then that means everything." That night, Olivia didn't sleep much. She walked the house after everyone was asleep, pausing in each room. She ran her fingers along the kitchen counter, traced the window frame with her hand, picked up Lily's artwork from the fridge. Every corner held a memory now. Every hallway echoed with the sound of laughter, soft arguments over bedtime, whispered hopes. In the early morning, she sat by the fireplace with her phone in her hand. She drafted the email. Then she deleted it. Then she drafted it again. Finally, she pressed send. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored. But I'm choosing to stay where I found the most meaningful work of my life here." The next morning, Olivia told Noah. He didn't say anything at first. He just reached over and held her hand. And that was enough. That weekend, Lily held a tea party in the living room and invited all her stuffed animals. She made name tags for everyone. Olivia's said Queen Nurse. Noah's said King Dad. Hers said Princess Lily. She smiled proudly. Now no one ever gets lost again, she said. Olivia looked at Noah, who mouthed, "That's all her." But Olivia knew the truth. Children only say things like that when they feel safe, when they feel whole. That night, as she and Noah tucked Lily into bed, the little girl reached out and grabbed both their hands. "Don't go anywhere," she whispered. "Not tonight," Olivia promised. "Not ever," Noah added. And in that moment, there were no more questions, no more what-ifs. Just the quiet, steady heartbeat of a family that had found its way through grief, loneliness, and fear, all because of a wrong number at 3 a.m. that was never wrong at all. Life didn't become perfect after that decision, but it became rooted. With Olivia's choice to stay, a new kind of rhythm settled into the house, deeper and stronger than before. Like the steady beat of a heart finding its natural pace again after years of running too fast. Winter melted into early spring, and every day brought new signs of renewal, not just in the blooming crocuses lining the fence, but in the way Noah smiled more easily, in the way Lily sang as she brushed her teeth, and in the way Olivia felt grounded not by routine, but by belonging. There were still challenges. Noah had follow-up appointments and flare-ups that reminded them both of his fragility. Olivia worked her hospital shifts with the same fierce dedication as always, but she also prioritized coming home to dinner, bedtime stories, and the quiet warmth of a child's trust. And every evening, without needing to ask, Olivia would walk into Lily's room and find the girl already scooting over in bed, making space for a good-night story, her little fingers gripping the edge of a book already bookmarked at her favorite page. One night, after a particularly long shift at the hospital, Olivia came home exhausted, shoulders, tight eyes burning from the overhead lights, and emotional fatigue that clings to you after watching someone fight to live. She didn't plan to talk about it. She rarely did. But Noah noticed. He always noticed. While Lily napped on the couch, he poured 2 cups of tea and set one in front of her. "Rough night?" he asked. She nodded, not speaking. He waited, and finally she whispered, "We lost a patient. Young. No family." I held her hand until the end. I keep wondering if it helped, or if I was just a stranger in the last chapter of her story. Noah was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You weren't a stranger. You were a witness. And sometimes that's the holiest thing you can be." That's what made their connection so rare. It wasn't built on shared hobbies or surface attraction. It was built on witnessing, on being present for each other's truths, however difficult or unglamorous. A few weeks later, Lily came home from school with an assignment: draw your family. She created a picture with her usual artistic flair, crayons, slightly smudged colors, 2 bright faces all smiling. At the bottom she wrote, "My forever family," in shaky handwriting. Her teacher, noticing the names, asked if Olivia was her aunt. Lily looked confused. "No, she's Olivia," she said simply. "She's ours." When Olivia saw the drawing later that evening, she blinked back tears. Forever family wasn't a term she had ever imagined applying to herself. Growing up in foster care, she had bounced between houses, learning early how to disappear, how not to get attached. Even into adulthood, she had treated her life like a series of contracts, jobs, leases, commitments with end dates. But Lily's picture didn't have an end date. It had permanence. And in that moment, Olivia realized she had stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She had stopped preparing to leave. She had allowed herself finally to stay. That weekend, the 3 of them planted a small garden in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just a few herbs, some tomato vines, and a row of sunflowers Lily insisted on. It wasn't about the vegetables. It was about the act of planting something together, of investing in tomorrow. While digging, Lily asked if they could build a little memory box for her mom and bury it beneath the tallest sunflower. Olivia and Noah agreed instantly. They spent the afternoon filling a small tin with keepsakes, a picture of Anna, one of Lily's baby socks, a tiny paper heart with scribbled memories, and when it was ready, they buried it gently in the soil. Then they stood in silence, holding hands, as Lily whispered, "Now she's part of everything that grows." It was one of those moments you never forget, not because it was grand, but because it was real, raw, human. That night, as Olivia washed dishes and Noah dried them beside her, he said, "You've given her so much." Olivia shook her head. "She gave me something first. A reason. He leaned closer. I used to think healing would come with time. Now I think it comes with people. She nodded. The right people. He hesitated, then reached into the drawer and pulled out a small ring box. Olivia stared wide-eyed. Is this not a proposal? He said, quickly laughing. Not yet. Just something I want you to have. She opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring, engraved with one line answered at 3 a.m. Olivia's breath caught. It's the moment everything changed, Noah said. For Lily, for me. For you too, I think. She slipped it on. It fit perfectly. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. I know, he said. And in that quiet kitchen with Lily asleep upstairs and soap bubbles on their hands, the world felt complete. No applause, no music. Just the soft glow of love that had grown, not through perfection, but through presence. Real love, earned and nurtured and shared. From that day forward, Olivia wore the ring not as a symbol of ownership or promises yet made, but as a reminder that the most unexpected moments, especially the ones that interrupt your sleep and your plans, can hold the greatest purpose. All it takes is the courage to answer the call.